Welcome back to Dyknow's Tech Coach Corner YouTube series. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined by Holly Clark, and we are talking about her book, The Chromebook Infused Classroom, and how to really implement technology with Chromebooks in a one-to-one environment. Holly is a super engaging speaker, and she is an expert in technology integration, so it's a great conversation. Before we jump into that, I just want to remind everyone to go subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you won't miss an episode that we put out or any other videos that we put out on our channel, as well as go ahead and find us on all our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, wherever you are, we are probably there as well. So go find us at Dyknow and at DyKnow-K12, and we would love to engage with you there. Other than that, I think that's all I have to plug today, so let's jump into the conversation with Holly Clark. Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Coach Corner. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined by Holly Clark. Holly, would you mind giving a brief introduction to yourself before we get started?
So I am a 20-plus year educator, and what puts me in this world is that in the year 2000, I got my first one-to-one classroom. So I've been doing this technology game and integrating it into my classroom for 20 years. I am also the author of the Chromebook Infused Classroom, which we'll talk about, the Google Infused Classroom, the Microsoft Infused Classroom, and I'm a prolific blogger and all of that, trying to just really help students.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you on the show today. We've worked with you in the past on our Tackling Tech podcast, and I know on there you talked about how you were kind of at the forefront of technology integration. So I'm excited today to talk to you about the Chromebook Infused Classroom. I know so many schools have really launched off one-to-one programs and expanded their whole schools and districts to one-to-one during this time of remote learning. So I would love if you could speak a little bit about what the Chromebook Infused Classroom is, and maybe tips for teachers and technology people in those schools for who are new to one-to-one device programs with Chromebooks.
Well, first, let's give a shout out and be like, woohoo, people are getting devices finally. And if it took a pandemic, you know, there are some really silver linings of this pandemic. So I'm super excited to hear about it. In fact, I've heard numbers as high as 86% of schools in the US have Chromebooks. I don't know if that number is correct, but if it is, it's exciting. And I wrote the Chromebook Infused Classroom before the pandemic, way before. In fact, I've been working on it for about 3 years. And I really wrote it with a teacher. There's one teacher at a school that I work with. So one of the things I do is I go and work with school districts all over the world. Not doing that right now, but normally I do. And there's this one teacher, every time I would come, she would come out in the hall and go, "Oh, you're here today. I need some help." And I was only there once a month. And so I really wrote this book for her because she always wanted ideas, and she wanted to just talk about how she could integrate technology into her classroom. So we're going to talk about in a different episode, the Google Infused Classroom, but I wanted to go further than that book, which was my first book. And so the Chromebook Infused Classroom is really looking at how do we take those great things that we do in analog and do them in digital. So that's like the premise of the book. So if I'm writing and I'm doing a writing unit with my students, how can I do that with these great digital tools? And one of the things that I'm starting to talk about is this idea of digital pedagogy. So we all know about the science and strategies of learning in the pedagogical field, but now we have these digital tools that kind of takes us into this idea of digital pedagogy. How do we do the science of learning with these new tools? Because actually it's way more powerful if we do it correctly. And so that is kind of the basis of the Chromebook Infused Classroom. And it really looks at so I want to have my kids ask more questions. How can I do that digitally? I want to have my kids write. How can I do it digitally? I want to have my kids doing geography. How can I do it digitally and more powerfully? So I'm super excited. In fact, of all my books, this is my favorite. You're not supposed to have a favorite, probably like a kid, right? But I like it the best because it's about blended learning and engagement. And that's huge right now.
Yeah, I think blended learning and student engagement, those are some really hot topics right now. And we actually just hosted a student engagement summit, and we're going to be hosting a larger one in December. So I think that's a hot topic. What tips would you have for educators who may have just gone one-to-one and are experiencing those student engagement challenges or don't fully have a grasp on blended learning? What are some quick tips you could give them to kind of begin being successful at that, or just words of encouragement?
So words of encouragement, you're doing the best you can do. And this is a tough time. So whatever you're doing is great. Now, when you want to come up from that little thing and go, hey, I wonder what else I can do, here are some tips. But I want to also say one thing, because I can't travel right now. I have gone back into the classroom on a voluntary basis, but I teach a full load of 8th grade English. So I'm doing it. I'm not just giving tips about what I think will work. I'm watching it happen every day. I just got done. My tip is this. For me, there are 3 tools I'm using over and over again. And I guess I would try to get familiar with these 3 tools as best you can. And we all are learning Google Classroom. It's pretty easy. You put your assignments in, whatever. This goes beyond that. And they attach themselves to Google Classroom. So one of the number one things that's really changed instruction for me, and I don't even know how I would have done remote learning without it, is Flipgrid. And because I've never met my students, ever. And most of them have their camera off all of the time, because if they turn it on, they have socks hanging out of their drawers, and it's the funniest little scenario. But so Flipgrid has been this ability for kids to leave me video responses. And it's important because I can see who they are as little creatures, and what they're like. I can see when their face lights up when they talk about some content, but I also can get at their thinking and learning. And that's really important because I can make their journey visible. And that's one of the digital pedagogies we need to understand, is that we need to get into their minds and not just have them writing all the time. And then what am I looking at all these Google Docs? It's not so interesting for me as a teacher either. So Flipgrid is something that using all the time. And the second thing for me would be HyperDocs. And I'm teaching with teachers right now who have docs with links in them, but they're really just glorified worksheets. And a HyperDoc is something completely different. And a place to go to learn more about HyperDocs is hyperdocs.co. They have free academies, but basically what a HyperDoc is a student-facing lesson that uses links to create a blended experience that has an experience of explore. So I'm going to explore the content before we do it. I'm going to get to see why I'd want to learn this content, explain where the teacher explains or some sort of explanation about the content is given. And then the students apply their knowledge in some way, like in a demonstration of learning. So HyperDocs are a very specific document. I couldn't exist without that. And another tool that really I find myself going back to a lot is Google Slides. I want to get away from it. I'm co-teaching, so it's a little hard because my co-teacher really loves it. But we use a lot of Google Slides with Padlets embedded in them, and it's working really well, actually.
That's awesome. Yeah, Google Slides, we've heard a ton about, and tools like Slides Mania that have templates where you can use it for more than just a slide deck and a PowerPoint are so impactful and engaging for students. So I think those are some great tips and tools, as well as some insight into the Chromebook Infused Classroom. So we will link all of that below so that people can get those tools and engage with your book. Where can people find you, and what do you have coming out? Anything you want to plug that people can engage with you with?
No, sorry. So right now I'm at home, but and normally you can find me at a conference keynoting or talking, and so that's not happening right now, but ISTE's coming. And so ISTE is November 29th through December 5th. I'll be there. I'm actually one of their featured speakers. And I am doing a lot more video content, even TikToks, which is really strange for me, but and trying to connect with people that way. I also have a 6-series podcast coming in December that will be a limited edition podcast, and it'll only stay out for, I think, 2 months. That's all about teaching and learning in the pandemic and what's next. So that's going to be something people can look for on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, I guess.
Wonderful. We'll put that below as well so that people can know where to find it when it comes out. Thank you so much, Holly, for being with us today to talk about the Chromebook Infused Classroom.
Thank you for having me.